Afternoon, everybody. Welcome into CanesInSight PM. I am your host, Peter Ariz, and we have a very exciting show lined up for you this afternoon. If you're just joining us here on the CanesInSight channel, this is our 3 times a week afternoon show. If you are not familiar, we have CanesInSight Daily starting at 9 a.m. every single day, Monday through Friday. Really, we go on the weekends as well, not always right at 9 o'clock, but pretty much 7 days, 365 coverage here on the CanesInSight channel. And that daily show hosted by D Money right here. D, hop in. Welcome into the afternoon show here. As we had a good time this morning on CanesInSight Daily. Had a good show there, but really excited about this afternoon here with Torres going to be joining us here in just a few minutes from Fox Sports Radio.
Yeah, I've been following his career for a while. Certainly college basketball. He's the man, also covers college football as well. So really kind of eager to hear the national perspective of where Miami is, because we were so Miami-centric on this show, and we know how far the program's come from last year, apples to apples. But what's the national perception? I think that's pretty interesting to find out.
Yeah, and we will have him joining us here right at 3 o'clock here in a couple minutes. So we'll get into it's college basketball season. We'll talk college basketball, Canes, Jay Lucas, all of that. But then want to get his national thoughts on Miami and where kind of this other headline here in today's show that we'll get into when Aaron gets off with us, and we'll kind of go through these lists. But Joel Klatt and Josh Pate both put out their top 10 coaches in college football right now. So those are always great talking points, these lists. And they both had Mario at number 9. So good fodder there for us.
Absolutely, man. It's good to be in these discussions. Last couple of years, 25 years, we really wouldn't be talking about these kind of things. So nice to be back in the conversation, especially as you get ready for draft day. Been doing all the draft stuff today, just kind of watching Senior Bowl stuff that I missed, the combine, stuff that we missed while we were getting ready to try to win the national championship. Now the combine coming up this week, but just like watching all that draft stuff, it's nice to have our guys right there at the top of those lists.
Yeah, and obviously the season that we had this year kind of pushes these guys forward. You need those guys to make these runs. It kind of goes hand in hand, as I've said, but should be a big week, man. I think Ruben Bain is going to be under a lot of scrutiny because he doesn't look how they're necessarily supposed to look at his position, but the film there really speaks for itself. And D I know has been battling.
You got me mid squeeze.
So yeah,
you asked that question.
Either that or you're very pensive.
Just thinking deeply about that response. No, man. Bain's gonna have a big week. I wonder if he's gonna run. I don't know if he's gonna run that fast, to be honest with you. But I think with the tape, the fact that it was against the playoff level competition, you see guys like Senior Bowl. I'm watching guys that I know got destroyed by these players. The Texas A&M tackle. Guys that Blake Miller is going to be drafted pretty high from Clemson. He's getting a first-round buzz. I think he's the guy that Ruben Bain, Reggie White clubbed back when Clemson came down to play Miami. So any tackle you're talking about, aside from the Utah guys, Bain's pretty much destroyed them at one point or another. So the quality tape, I think, for him and the amount of it, right? There's so much to watch with him. I don't know if he needs to necessarily do too much with the combine. Because he's not going to, I don't know if he's going to run fast. I don't think that suits what he does.
Yeah, I think the 10-yard split, if he runs, would be a good measure of what he does, just getting off the ball. And again, the power is the power. I don't know that he needs to go out there and put up a certain amount of reps on the bench press. You see what he does against guys at the collegiate level and against the best of the best, as we saw during the playoff run, right?
Yeah, when you see all these guys together, his body type's not going to look that great. He's one of those guys you see walking around. He doesn't look like Hayden Lowe or one of these guys. It's kind of how you draw it up. But obviously for the function of playing defensive end and stopping the run and getting sacks and doing what he does to kill tackles, it works fine. But just this is an environment I think that hurts him. So I'm curious to see what he does. He just needs to kind of hold serve and let people just trust the tape and not do anything that's going to scare people. Because I don't think this is what it is. Not going to stretch his arms out. But I'll be watching him for sure. Messidor, I think, will do well in this setting. I don't know how he's going to run, but he moves very well. He's a former linebacker. I think he'll be okay with that. The medical you talked about.
Yeah, that'll be the stuff we don't see on NFL Network will be the most important things for him, which is the medical.
But really, I think Carson Beck That's the guy. And Keontae Scott. Really, those two. If Scott runs really fast, about 4.3 something, and Beck throws the ball well and everything checks out, I can see those guys really, really climbing the ranks. Those are the two I'm watching very close.
I actually do also, D, which I'll tease this here as we wait for Aaron Torres here to join us in just a second. But I do have a bit of recruiting news. So we will, I'll table that for now, and we'll say that, we'll talk that after. It's I've dropped the news on the Discord now a little while ago, but some pretty significant news in terms of a visitor who will be on campus here in the next month, man. I'm excited for that March. March is going to be recruiting wise. We've been reporting stuff and we've been doing pretty much every day. We're talking recruiting here, but that March is going to be pivotal because the way the calendar works now, realistically, the recruiting staff, the coaches have deloaded from the season now, at least at Miami a little bit. They've been working, they've been on the road, but March is when I expect them to really hit it in terms of recruiting. So that'll be fun to follow.
And you have the visits during spring practice, which starts later this year. So later spring and later March, and then the visits will follow right with that. They'll be having multiple stars on campus every single day, and you'll get exclusive coverage on the CanesInSight podcast. But I think our guest is here, Pete.
Yeah, talking about stars, man. One of my favorite college football, college basketball media voices out there going to be joining us right now. And that is Aaron Torres of Fox Sports Radio and the Aaron Torres pod, owner of Aaron Torres Media. Aaron, man, appreciate you joining us today. How you doing?
No problem, fellas. Yeah, I usually have a little bit of a better frame here, so you could see my wife's degree in the background there. You could see the couch. I apologize. When I do my own show, the frame covers this all. But it's a pleasure, and I sincerely mean this. I love what you guys do. When I need Canes information, and a lot of times when I need information about other programs, you guys have it before everybody else. And so it's a pleasure. It's an honor, and happy to join you to talk as much Canes as you want.
Yeah, man, that means a lot coming from you, so appreciate those words for sure. And look, we'll talk. We're in the middle of college hoop season. We're definitely going to talk college football. We're going to talk Canes because if not, our comment section will get on us about it. But we're in the heart of college basketball season. Yeah, you've been, I think, from the beginning a fan of what Jay Lucas, that hire was for Miami. You saw him kind of up close there at Kentucky, and some of these other big time programs that he's been at here. Year one, I mean, your expectations, I would guess that they've been met here right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, I've been following this journey since the day that Peter broke the story, and then everybody tried to take credit 2 or 3 weeks later. So it's been an adventure. And listen, it has obviously exceeded expectations. I think once we saw the final roster, obviously whatever time of year it was, late April, early May, I think I had them right around a top 25 team. I think kind of my final top 25 in the summertime, I had them right around 24, 25, 26. But listen, it's one thing to put together a top 25 roster, but in an improved ACC, to be in position to potentially get the double bye at the ACC tournament. Listen, I'm not a huge bracketology guy, but it seems to me very comfortably in the NCAA tournament. It just feels like it has exceeded my expectations, and I think specifically exceeded expectations for a first-year head coach. Like, with no disrespect intended, because I love this guy. We've seen Will Wade flip programs overnight, and so you sit there and say, yeah, he's going to do it at NC State because he's done it everywhere he's been. And you couldn't say that about Jay Lucas. And so I think that was kind of the big question coming into the Jay Lucas experience, is basically just essentially like, well, what's it going to be like in game? We know what he's done on the recruiting trail. We know the relationships. We know the history. We know the family history. Well, he's obviously been lights out on the court, off the court, everything. And so I think that's probably why it has absolutely exceeded my expectations.
Aaron, just the ACC in general, you cover SEC heavily, you cover the whole country. What do you see from the ACC this year and how it stacks up, and where Miami fits into that hierarchy this season?
Well, first off, what I see, and Peter, I forget if you and I talked about it over the summer, but the ACC, I think, was living, their biggest strength was talking about the past. And, Tony Bennett did this 5 or 6 years ago, and Jim Larinaga did this. And, I really felt like we were at a point where there were a lot of guys, and it wasn't even my opinion. Like, it came out at press conferences. Jim Larinaga at his final press conference said, this isn't the college basketball that I came up in, and it's time for somebody else. Same with Tony Bennett at Virginia. You know, if you go back a few years, Coach K, Roy Williams, it was all the same thing. And so I thought the ACC was too caught up in, well, we have this legend, we have that legend, we have this guy. Okay, do you have guys that are bought into that this is the new world of college sports right now? And if you don't, it's time to move on. And so because of that, I you know, and I've said this on NC State podcasts, I've said it wherever, I think it's been an across the board thing. I was a little critical when he accused everyone of punching his assistant coaches, but I think John Shire has done an incredible job with Duke. You know, NC State, Will Wade, it speaks for itself. Virginia with Ryan Odom, like, it was crazy. Like, I was actually watching your guys' game a little bit with them on Saturday, and I'll just be totally transparent. Like, I saw the win-loss record for Virginia. I was like, I knew they were good, but, you know, at the time, we're talking about a team that was, of course, at the time 23-3, now 24-3. And so I only bring it up because another perfect example of a school that it's great that you have this national championship winning coach, but is he bought into this is where we are in 2026? I don't think he was. And so I put Miami, Virginia, all these schools, NC State in that group. And I think we're seeing as a byproduct, the ACC as a whole, by kind of jumping into this new era of college sports, I think we're seeing better success across the board, no doubt.
It's an interesting Miami team this year, Aaron, because they had a couple chances in the first 10 games of the year. They played Florida and BYU, and they just weren't ready for anything near that. Yep, gave BYU a good first half. You know, probably played Florida closer than the score indicated. But now you're 25 games into the season. You saw them a couple weeks ago beat NC State, beat North Carolina in the same week. And then these net ratings, I love them, right? They move up more from the close loss on the road against Virginia than they actually move back 2 spots the week that they beat Carolina and NC State. Don't understand it. Really, really don't. But still not really getting I would say, the respect in terms of the polls, right? I mean, do you see this as a team that to me, the way I look at it is if they get off that 1 seed line, they're a team that could potentially get to the second round here. Is that a ceiling that you see there, or is it just not to be in year one, in your opinion?
Oh, yeah. No, I think, you know, listen, they got a bunch of, you know, guys that have high major experience. Everybody listening knows about the roster. It's no secret. And so I think when you get into a tournament setting, you know, Trey Donaldson has played in big games. Malik Reneau, has played in big games. True Washington played in an NCAA tournament a year ago. So no, I think they'll be fine, you know. And it's funny, your point about the net, it drives me crazy. And like, I don't, by the way, Miami fans are certainly not the only ones that have the same frustration. I know, like Arkansas last week, for some reason, they weren't very good in the net. And then I think they lost to Alabama and they moved up. It's a weird metric. I don't love it. It's ironic. Right after we get off the call here, I'm actually chatting with Miami of Ohio coach Travis Steele. And, you know, they're undefeated right now at 27-0. And people are saying they wouldn't get in that large if they lose, you know, and it's just like, what are we even doing here? So I'm not a fan of the net. Listen, I understand eye test can't be a be-all, end-all. I understand we need some metrics to kind of contextualize what we're seeing. But, you know, let's put aside the Hurricanes and let's talk about that other Miami team. And I know this isn't I don't know how much you talk Miami of Ohio on this show, but, you know, if that's a team that ends up even 32-2 and loses in their conference tournament, like, what are we even doing? And I think the conversation that you guys are having is a conversation that a lot of people are having. And then I think transparently, there's some schools that are like, I know the computers love us, but we don't actually see it on the court. And so last thing, because I know I'm rambling, I think we've almost become too reliant on the computers. I think it becomes this stopgap of, well, you get these tournament chairs and you get the people in charge, and it's like they default too much to, well, in the net there. Anyway, I don't think it's a perfect metric. It's what we're stuck with for now. I hope it gets adjusted over time. But Miami Hurricanes fans certainly are not the only ones that are not very happy with it.
A lot of the discussion, Aaron, about Jay here with the fan base, of course, everybody happy with the job he's doing, thrilled with the job he's doing, and concerned that it's just a stepping stone for the next opportunity. We know the blue bloods in college basketball. Also seen teams like Auburn that didn't have a whole lot of tradition, less than probably UM had, but have been consistent winners when the right, stars aligned. How do you see that playing out as far as can Miami get to the point where Jay Lucas could accomplish his goals? I know you're not him, so I'm not asking you to put yourself in his shoes, but where Miami could accomplish those national championship goals for him with time, NIL, everything else? Or is a situation where there is a ceiling nationally in terms of perception, and the national expectation for people like you who cover this sport at a big time level is, hey, Kentucky might come calling, or someone's going to come calling, and he's out of there?
So I probably have a little bit of a different perspective on this. I actually think it's going to be increasingly harder if you're listen, what I think is going to happen, and Miami football might be at the forefront of this. I think we're going to get to a haves and have-nots world very quickly. And we all listen, again, no disrespect intended. Nobody knows better than Miami fans. Nobody is abiding by the $20.5 million cap that the CSC or the NCAA or whomever is in charge is saying you have to abide by. That's not disrespect. It's just a fact. And everybody knows it. And so I hate to say it, but you go back to the football coaching cycle. Lane Kiffin openly talked about, hey, money above the cap. Kalani Sitake, a big reason he stayed at BYU was they promised him money above that $20.5 million. And so to trickle down to basketball, listen, I think there are always going to be schools that are going to support basketball better than others. But I also think that if you get the right guy, and you guys know the Miami scene way more than I am, Miami feels like a place that will financially support that guy, if he's having the success that they want, and certainly if there's a demand for him. Now, listen, everybody's got dream jobs. For Jay, what I think is interesting about Jay, he's obviously not only worked at Duke and Kentucky, but like the ties to Texas, if that job were to open up at any point in the foreseeable future, and I know it just opened up, so probably won't be opening up anytime soon. Like, is that a job that would interest him? So I don't know what's on his personal kind of bucket list or whatever. But I just think in this world, it's going to be, if I feel like I have the financial support that I need in this new world that isn't slowing down, we're not going back to, again, there's a $20.5 million cap and basketball gets $2.5 million and nobody is spending $1 more than that's not happening. And so does your school have that money to support the staff in the way that they feel, or do they not? And I'll be really quick, and I think that's kind of a year-to-year thing, because I even look at somebody like a Nate Oates at Alabama who clearly is struggling with NIL in a way that I don't think he anticipated. If you had asked me, 18 months ago, I would say he's probably going to retire at Alabama. Now I feel like, his buyout's a little crazy, but I feel like he's a guy that could be poached. So that's a long-winded way of me saying, I think if Jay Lucas has the success that all Miami fans are hoping for, and that really, frankly, the continued success based on this season, then I just think it comes down to, can the program continue to support him? You guys would know better than me, but it doesn't feel like if you have a winner at Miami, financial support is going to be an issue.
Yeah, and I think the other part of it to look at if you're Jay Lucas is he has been at the Blue Bloods.
Yep.
When he has a situation like True Washington the other day, who's out for personal reasons, he gets one question about it, and no one's
totally
really
fair.
And we had him on the show last week. Living in Miami is nice. It's a bit different than Lexington. Lexington, I'm sure, has its great perks, but he seems to like it down here.
He doesn't strike me as a bourbon drinker. I don't know. I mean, if he was, it might be a little bit of a different deal. But if it's sunshine and 80 degrees and a breeze, then yeah, it's not a bad place to live.
It's interesting too, because we talk about it with him. A lot of the pros this is where they are in the off season. They're training at the facility. So I think in the NIL era, that's a bigger sell than people realize.
Well, and I'll just say really quick on that is that, I think there are certain places that, and I think that's a great example of there are inherent advantages that nobody else has or very few others have. And, let's use another example of a school. Well, I don't know about Miami specifically, but a school that has certainly used NIL to their advantage, like BYU. And I love the staff there. I know them really well, but it is BYU. There are limitations, and is that momentum that they're going to be able to carry year over year over year, because there are certain, obviously, things that you can and cannot do, you can and cannot take advantage of there. And I think to Miami's point, it's the weather. I'll say this. I actually think, and this might be an unpopular opinion, I think there are a lot of coaches that don't want the stress that you just mentioned. I mean, look at Mark
They already
Pope
have enough stress with the NIL.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And to have every move micromanaged. Now, again, I think if it's year 4 and you're coming off an Elite 8 and you have 2,500 people in the building, then that becomes a different conversation. But I also think the counter of every word you say at a press conference is analyzed and overanalyzed doesn't seem like a fun way to live either. And so it's pluses and minuses. You guys know them better than I do. But I would think that with the way Miami is set up, he could be there for a very long time, especially if he continues to have the success that he is having early in year 1.
Yeah, Aaron, I know. Oh, go ahead, D.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the shifts that the coach talked about was a lot of these kids now in Miami that he's recruiting. Talk about the city of Miami, Broward County, Palm Beach. They grew up watching Dwayne Wade, Chris Bosh, LeBron. So you're seeing more basketball talent locally. So that's another thing that he's talking about as well. But I want to ask you about the football team. You cover college football as well. Again, national perspective with everything you do for Fox Sports. One thing that caught my attention is it seems like people are already referring to Miami as a powerhouse program again. It was really just 1 year.
Sure.
And 20 years before that, from our perspective, they were in the desert. So a long time, and in many cases, a lifetime. But it seems like from a national perception, you're seeing signs that Miami's kind of jumping back on the horse, and people are just like, all right, well, it's almost like the last 20 years didn't happen. What do you see as the perception of the Miami Hurricanes program now after the run they just made nationally?
Well, I think you just used the one word that matters, is run, is that it wasn't a fluke, right? Okay, you go to A&M, you win this weird game, the wind is whipping a million miles an hour. Maybe A&M was overrated because of the schedule. I don't think people were talking about Miami in the same way as, oh, you beat Ohio State in a game where you kind of physically dominated them. I don't remember every detail now, but you kind of physically dominated the Buckeyes. Matter of fact, it was funny. One of my interns just texted me right before I joined you guys. He texted me, Matt Patricia re-signed, but he didn't put the dash. And so I thought it said he resigned. And I'm like, damn, Miami broke this whole Miami broke the whole program. So, I think all those wins, by the way, we all know Ole Miss was the last standing SEC team. You guys kind of bullied them. I know it came down to the final play. I think that was more of a Trinidad Chambliss thing than it was Ole Miss was your equal thing. And then I think it's amazing how quiet the Notre Dame conversation got later on in the playoff, because it's like, oh, Miami belonged. Miami beat them head to head. And I always thought that was a strong sales pitch for how good Miami was all along. Okay, we all agreed Notre Dame should have been in this playoff, and if it wasn't for this weird James Madison double dip with Tulane, they would have been. Well, Miami beat that team. So, again, I think if it was a one-off, I think, listen, let me put it this way, and you guys know, and I'm not trying to be critical, but, Mario Cristobal has at times taken losses that I think, everyone was disappointed in the moment when we all knew he had more talent. And like I said, I think if you just get in, if you just beat A&M, it becomes a conversation of, was this the right team? How good but we all watch the games. I mean, physical domination, everything that Mario Cristobal said he wanted to do with the program, he did. And, I don't mean to pour salt in a wound, but even the championship game, I would argue Miami largely outplayed Indiana, and Indiana was a great story. But Miami largely outplayed them, physically matched up. And I think everybody knows you're kind of built for the long haul. And to go back to the football or to the basketball conversation as well, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way, but we know financially the program is set up to have success. And I think sometimes when guys like me talk about programs with talking about financials, everybody assumes it's a negative. I'm not anti-NIL. Go get your money. I like it. It gives me content all December long, all April and May during basketball portal season. So, probably should be a few more rules, but I don't mind the way things are right now. And so I just bring it up because you have the right coach. And I think what was indisputable was anybody who watched those games, and everybody who's talking about it certainly did, saw that Miami was essentially the equal of every team in college football once they actually got on a field with them. Can I ask you guys a question, actually, now that I'm thinking about it? About the football side of things. Does the ACC thing matter to you? Or like ACC football now? It is so bad. Like it's funny. You know, I was looking over some stuff just the other day, and I think Louisville is kind of ascending, but Florida State, I mean, you guys, I'm sure have had some fun at their expense. They're basically punting on the 2026 season. Clemson, is it like, do you guys worry about that? Do you care about it? Does it not impact your orbit because Miami is operating, frankly, at such another tier? Or do you worry because I do think the perception isn't great, and Miami might be the only thing kind of changing that perception nationally?
I mean, me personally, I think it's gonna be it's a one bid conference moving forward. You just have to be that team. I like what I've said before, Aaron. I don't know if you're a soccer guy or not, so this may not compute to you, but like there's Bayern Munich, Paris Saint-Germain who play in these leagues in Germany and France, and they are world powers. They don't really have much competition within their own league, but they're trying to go win the Champions League and be the European champions. You've got to be that team. Miami still hasn't done that in the ACC, which is my concern. So it's like, if we were already winning the ACC every other year, now it's trending that way. But as a basketball guy, I love the basketball side of things. I love the traditional side of stuff there. I know that that's not going to mean anything here in a couple of years, the way this thing is moving. But my concern would be they haven't been the big dog. They really just haven't been the big dog of the ACC. So that's my concern more so than where the conference is at.
Yeah. And also good baseball conference too, the ACC.
Sure.
So there's the benefits. But yeah, I mean, I agree with P. I think the tricky thing is the ACC in many respects has played us better than the SEC. I mean, Miami's pretty much had their way with the SEC the last couple of years. They beat Texas A&M by a pretty good amount at home, beat Florida twice. Neither game was particularly close. Beat Ole Miss, beat Texas A&M. It's the ACC where they've had issues, the SMUs of the world, Louisville. So it's tricky because, like you said, it's not a very strong national perception, but you still got to beat those teams. And they have not been that easy to beat for Miami. And really in the Bulls, they've been kind of feisty. But ultimately, they lose players.
They don't have the bodies. They don't have the trenches.
On the NIL side, it's a net loss of players. So, just like how you were talking about the kind of the big fish and the small fish with the NIL and how that is really all that matters at the end of the day. ACC teams tend to lose their best players. Other teams don't. I think if you look at the draft this year, South Carolina is a first-round corner from NC State. Obviously, Mendoza's from Cal. There's a few ACC guys. Mansur Delane, who's going to get drafted in the first round from LSU. These are all ACC guys who left. They're not coming in the other direction as frequently. So I think that's part of the problem too.
No, and I'll just say really quick from my perspective is, I think it's probably obvious, but I'll just say it anyway. Like the amount of money that you need to compete in the ACC, it can be done in basketball. There's probably 7, 8, 9, 10 programs that can raise that kind of money. I really don't know. You guys would know Florida State better than I do. It feels like they're kind of a mess. And I don't know if it's a Norvell thing or if they just don't have the money. It just feels like Miami might be the only one. Like I said, I know some people at Louisville, and it was like, I think, some people would sit there and say, they beat Miami, but they finished poorly. And I think they look at it as like, we know what we had to work with relative to not necessarily Miami, but like the upper tier of college football. And I think they were kind of proud of a 9-4 season overall. And I don't want Louisville fans to run with that as like they're happy underachieving. I just think that they know that they were not on an equal playing field with the top of the sport. I guess that's kind of just the interesting part to me.
Virginia Tech's an interesting one to me. I
no doubt.
I don't know that they long-term can sustain a big spending effort, but at the same time, I don't know that Franklin would have committed to that if he didn't think that they could put something together here pretty quickly. And evaluation-wise, I think he's always done a top-notch job as referenced by the draft and, where these guys are rated coming out of high school. So Virginia Tech's an interesting one to me. It really is, Aaron. So listen,
I'll be quick. Yeah, I was going to say, I'll just be quick on that one. I think that's the big question is, can you raise the money year over year over year? And anybody can raise money to make a hire, to keep a guy when other schools are sniffing around, but can you do it year over year? And I think with Virginia Tech, it'd be interesting because it's kind of a chicken and the egg thing of like, if James Franklin wins, I would assume they'll keep finding the money. The question becomes, obviously, does he win at the level that they need him to, which I think he will. But
Aaron, man, awesome stuff from you. Really appreciate you joining the show today. And man, hope to have you on once again here. I know you've got your show with Fox Sports Radio on Saturdays, and then also the Aaron Torres pod. So guys, go follow him and let the people know what you're working on these days. Anything else?
No, it's a busy time. It's a fun time. I do, I'm one of those guys that does follow college hoops 365, and I've communicated with you guys about it, all off season. But no, it's a fun time of year, man. It feels like college hoops is kind of in the mainstream, and then as you guys know, and I know you guys are covering football all year round, but with hoops, the portal cycle becomes, like I said, 6 more weeks of content. So all of a sudden, you're in the middle of May and you basically, you got stuff to talk about really through the beginning of June. Then by July, we're ramping up again to football. Someday I'll be able to just take off the whole month of June because it's usually pretty quiet. I'm not quite at that point yet, but love what I do, love covering college sports. And I know I've referenced it a few times, but with the way things are going, there's never a shortage of stuff to talk about. So I appreciate you guys having me, and honestly, anytime you guys need me, let me know. I enjoyed it, hopefully as much as you guys did, and anytime you guys need me, just holler, okay?
Awesome, man. Appreciate it. Yeah, me and D always say we don't like that the second transfer portal window is gone. It takes away all this.
Because you guys are taking everybody else's players.
For us.
Yeah, you guys are taking everybody else's players. That's why. No.
Well, listen, I'll tell you what, we can lose a third or fourth stringer, and the fan base reacts to that just as much as as bringing someone in. So it goes both ways.
Fair enough.
Aaron, man, thank you so much for your time today. Great.
Thanks,
All
Aaron.
right, fellas. No problem, guys. We'll do it again soon. Thank you.
That was great.
What a pro, man. You can tell the pros that, we've been doing this for a while. We should be pros by now, but you can tell people that do it, for a living with the radio voice. The guy's
definitely
good
perspective. Good perspective. And the Jay Lucas stuff, I mean, we can talk about the football. We're going to get into these top 10 coaches lists now, but the Jay Lucas stuff is interesting to me because he's seen the other side. He's seen Kentucky, Texas, Duke. He knows what that looks like.
Yeah. Duke especially, because he's got to get through Duke and also win the conference. So we kind of say, he's looking at that
to use that as the measuring stick, right?
It's like we got to get that because he doesn't want to lose to his boy. Are they talking? Shire and him?
Nah, I heard they aren't.
So he wants to beat him. So
I don't like to air people's personal relationships out either.
No, I'm just saying that I'm sure in terms of success for him, true success, this team had different goals just to get up and running, but long term,
he wants to go win it. I mean, he said he wasn't going to sleep until he brings the title here and gets what he wants done. I hope he gets a little shut-eye before the game tomorrow night because that's a big one.
If he wants to unwind and relax, Pete, I know exactly what he's got to do. And that's pour himself a nice glass of ZONIN. ZONIN Prosecco, boom, right there. My man Rob been taking it from Italy, where it's been one of the most respected winemaking families in Italy, the ZONIN family, over 200 years of winemaking heritage. Now all over the United States, including South Florida, Publix, Milam's, ABC Fine Wine and Spirits, Jetson liquor stores, you name it, but also Total Wine, and really available all over the nation. Restaurants, from the fancy omakai sushi to the Olive Garden, they have ZONIN. Just ask for it. Make sure they have what you're asking for, so the people know we support ZONIN, support the Canes Inside podcast, and support a fellow Cane in my guy Rob. So shout out to ZONIN Prosecco, one of the finest Proseccos in the country, the People's Prosecco, I call it, awarded Best Buy by wine enthusiasts, and 90+ points from James Suckling.
So D, let's get into this. A couple of these lists. Josh Pate, who's been in the news for this list that he's done. I mean, it's really gotten a lot of people, up in arms about. But outside of that, Joel Klatt has also put out a list, and they both have Mario at number 9. And I'm going to pull up the list here. Both of them having a 9. I don't think it's like a disrespectful thing in any way. I think that shows you, and that's not everybody, but I think if you ask most people's lists, they're going to have Mario in the top 10 in terms of coaches in college football. Everyone has their different criteria. What are we talking about? Are you talking about, hey, if you just give 2 coaches the same talent and who's scheming them up? Are you talking about building a program? That's why, these lists are always down to the person doing them. But my initial impression was I would have him probably in the top 7.
Yeah. I mean, we're picking nits there, 7 and 9. Let's pull up the list, Pete. Pull up which one you'll pull up, Clatter or Pate?
I'll pull up Klatz first.
So part of this deal when it comes to them is they know all these coaches. So like they're taking a lot of stuff into it that they have access to that we don't know about. Also, obviously when you're friendly with these guys, there's personal connections too. So these lists, you got to pay attention to them because I think these guys know the coaches better than most. Talking about Pate and Klatt in particular, but also understand there's biases. I got no problem with this list, to be honest with you, Pete. I would probably flip Day and Smart because I think Day kept Ohio State at its consistent level, which is probably the most
there. Yeah,
it was the most consistent. And I got to give it to Ohio State. To me, they're the most consistent program in college football since I've been alive. 1985, right? Pretty much as I've been watching college football, Ohio State's been good. They kind of were second place to Michigan for a while. Got over the hump against us, unfortunately, and they've been probably ahead of Michigan since. It goes back and forth in certain games, but they've been extremely consistent. So I think he inherited a consistent program from Urban Meyer. Kirby inherited a good program from Mark Richt, but it had taken a slight step back. Again, Richt was probably starting to get a little bit sick at this point. I don't know. I'm not a doctor, but I mean, he only had a few more years left coaching. And the performance has sort of slipped a little bit, plateaued in some areas, dropped in others. And he really took them to that next level where they were winning championships. So I thought, and then kept them at that high level. So to me, Kirby Smart, especially this year, I did not think he had a very good team relative to his past teams, in my opinion. I just didn't see the talent. I mean, who's getting drafted from this Georgia team that's blowing your socks off?
Least amount. I mean, they have 8 guys going to the combine. That's the least amount they've had in a while.
Right. Look, Freeland will probably end up going first round. CJ Allen could end up going first round. Zachariah Branch maybe sneaks into it. Maybe they end up getting 3 first rounders, but it's not like no doubters. And they didn't perform that well while they were there. And I don't think that was Kirby's fault. So
this next one here, Lanning, is the one that I don't necessarily agree with this high. In both lists, Pate had him at 4 also. I think he's a really good coach. I think he's a heck of a recruiter. I think they have some good resources there at Oregon. They also have some stuff at a disadvantage that we've talked about where like it's not the greatest place to get recruits to go to school. But I think a lot of this is just that like he does great pregame speeches. He's good with the media stuff. He has there's good clips about him. He's got that smile on his face, or he's got that like intense, like, chewing and like eyes wide open. And that stuff plays well into, oh, this guy's a heck of a coach. When, I mean, I think he's top 8, top 7, but top 5 is a little bit rich for me.
Yeah, I can agree with that. And look, I think the guy that's going to force his way into this list, talking about Big Ten coaches, or in this case, an ACC coach, a former Big Ten coach, I think James Franklin's got to find his way onto this list. He just got fired, so how high do you put him on this list? But I do think one good season at Virginia Tech, or he gets this thing rolling in a couple of years, you'll have to put him back on this list. I'm a big believer in guys who build it. There's Mo Hussein, how he thinks Mars should be 4 hands down. Appreciate your support. For me, I like guys who build, because if they could build in other places too. You see it with Mario. Oregon was down when he took it over. He elevated that program. FIU is nothing. Still is kind of a tough program to coach at. He won his championship there. Probably their best years. It wasn't the 1 year with Butch and Coach Davis, who we talked to this morning. But I would say I like builders on a list like this, or they're just like so good with the X's and O's that they elevate their team. I guess the example here would be like a Lane.
Yep. Sark, I think he's a heck of a coach. I think he's a really, really good coach, but I think you also have to bump him down a little bit here for like as much talent as he's had, and he hasn't gotten over the line.
Yeah, I think the counter would be, well, Texas, I think people assume Texas is better than, like, Texas was like Miami. I mean, Texas was in the gutter, So he did get Texas back up and running, and they've been consistent for 3 years in a way that maybe with Mario, you're
semifinal appearance,
one more year. But we're picking nits. I look, I wasn't appalled by this list, and I like the fact that putting Mario there you don't get accused of controversy, right? I didn't see a lot of pushback from national people on Mario being he's on both lists. So I think you're getting closer to a consensus guy. And I think now that he's done it in Miami, not everything he wants to do, which is win a championship and get in that top tier, but which again, one drive away, but the whole body of work winning at FIU with no resources, winning at Oregon with resources but pre-NIL, so you couldn't pay players. You had to recruit players to Eugene, Oregon, which can be difficult. Eugene is not a very attractive place. I love Oregon. I always say it. I go to Oregon all the time. Eugene is not like the place you want to be in Oregon. So and there's not players there for the most part. So tough place to recruit to when you can't just pay players. So I think Mario, even though they always had good facilities when he was there, they had good resources at Oregon. What he did there, I think, deserves a lot of respect, especially with what he took over. And then when he handed to Lanning, and Lanning was able to elevate with NIL and with the good roster and with his own qualities. So then, of course, Miami, total dumpster when he took over. Now one of the better programs in the country. So doing it 3 times at 3 different spots, different situations, I think Mario has solidified himself. It's not just us saying it; it's a consensus top 10 coach. And Josh points out he wasn't on anyone's list until this year. The national perspective is elevating after last year's run. I saw him on a list that was like a longer list. He was like 23rd or something like that last year. Which still, there were good coaches in that area. It wasn't like a total disgrace, but it wasn't. There's a top 10 and top 20 when it comes to stuff like this.
What do you think about Whittingham and Sataki here?
Love them. I mean, those teams are well coached, man. What can you say? Those Utah, when you play those guys, they're going to be good. They're going to find players that are NFL players that aren't ranked that out of high school. They're consistent with what they do. I mean, I got nothing but respect for Utah as a state when it comes to football. Ever since I saw that team of just like Mormon kids come down to Overtown and almost beat, I guess it would have been in Travis Powell, but beat Booker T, or almost beat, Booker T, which was one of the best teams I'd ever seen. They've been killing teams in Atlanta, killing teams in Miami, and then this team from Utah showed up in Traz and almost beat them. That was an eye-opener, the kind of football these guys play. Just well-coached, tough, more athletic than people think. And these guys are really good evaluators and they're really good coaches. I'm extremely curious to see what Whittingham does at Michigan. Their defense is the thing that concerns me because I think they've lost a lot of D-line talent to the NFL over the past few years that they haven't replaced in recruiting. They're a little thin in the front seven. But offensively, that offense just replaced Devin Dampier with Bryce Underwood and some of the other guys you have around him. I think this offense for Michigan could be one of the best in the country.
So I'm going to switch it over to Josh Pate's list here, which couple differences right off the bat. He's got Lane Kiffin way higher. He's got Lanning and Freeman both in the same spots at 4 and 5. He put Signetti third, and then he flipped Ryan Day. Well, he still has Ryan Day ahead of Smart there, but has Ryan Day number 1, and then has Mike Elko and Kalen DeBoer on his top 10 here. And this is, again, based off the last 3 years. So people who might jump and say Kalen DeBoer, I'll remind you that he was in the national championship at Washington a couple years ago. So I don't agree with it, but he's using that criteria.
Yeah, and I mean,
which are you saying? Are you then saying we're going off the accomplishments of the last 3 years, or are we saying who we want as our coach right now? That's where I don't understand it.
So Klatt said this when it came to DeBoer as to why he wasn't on Klatt's list, and I agree with what he said, which is I don't like where that arrow is pointing on Alabama. I didn't like how they played this year. I made this joke in a group chat, but I'll stand by it. I think Lanning should be at Alabama and DeBoer should be at Oregon. That to me is how this should be kind of ordered. I'm not sure DeBoer's an Alabama guy, and I'm not sure Lanning is really an Oregon guy. I'd flip those two. If I was if this was fantasy football with coaches, but I just think
commish.
DeBoer just is where's he from? Like North Dakota or something like that. He's from that part of the West. Lanning worked in the SEC. It's kind of where he made his name. He's from Missouri, so yeah, I guess kind of the South. We'll call it the South. But just the way he plays and the way what he prioritizes the front seven, I think you could get more of that in the Alabama world. Whereas with the DeBoer values, Mike Penix throwing to those great receivers, I think you could get that done at Oregon, and it just makes more sense. Of course, this is just fantasy booking, but I don't know if DeBoer is the right guy for Alabama. When I see them pass on 4th down all the time, I throw up in my mouth a little bit. I'm happy Alabama's going down after all the years of pain, but if I was an Alabama fan and I saw some of these short yardage calls that he did and some of the inability to stop the run, we had Coach Davis on this morning, Pete. What do you say? Yeah, stop the run. You got to run the ball.
And run the ball.
And be good in the trenches. And I don't think Alabama was good in either category last year when the going got tough. Statistically, their defense was fine. But when they played a real offense, they looked pretty soft to me, whether it was Georgia, Indiana. I mean, I would have loved to play at Alabama. I think we would have pushed him around. So
yeah, it's funny. We asked, I think you had asked Coach Davis about, how he wants to build things, and he was talking about that, and talking about the lines of scrimmage, and then we asked him about what Mario has done at Miami, and he's pretty much said that same exact thing, and it goes across the board. Lane Kiffin at 6, I don't know, man. Just a lot going on there.
Yeah, now if I'm making the case for Lane, I would say he had a very checkered, forget like the beginning part of his career when Lil Wayne was shouting him out in rap songs, and he had the whole thing with the play and he was in the pros. If we just focus on sort of the reclamation era of Lane Kiffin, and I think he's talked about, illicit substance abuse. So he's been open about that. It's like a player with an injury. I mean, it's scares you a little bit when you're putting these kind of lists together because, unfortunately, he's not the only person in the coaching world dealing with that kind of stuff. People in the world, just like in our lives, people are dealing with it. But that's something I think you factor in with him. But if you look at just I guess you'd call since he's gotten clean, and I don't know if this perfectly lines up, but FAU, what he did there as a head coach was outstanding. They were killing teams. And then Ole Miss, he really made that program was not just a good offensive play calling, but he's done a good job hiring coordinators. He's done a good job picking portal guys. He's a sneaky good evaluator. He gets a lot of NFL players from different, a backup at Alabama or someone that gets washed out somewhere else, and they end up going to Ole Miss, and you see him getting drafted first, second, third round. So he's pretty good at that aspect of picking guys in the portal. And then at Ole Miss, he had money with the Dunlap tires. He'll have that kind of money in LSU too. So I could see it working. There's just a lot of combustible elements there.
The name I like here is Elko at 10. I agree with that. I think he's an awesome coach, and he has those resources behind him. It's a really good fit, it seems like. I don't see him going anywhere anytime soon, and it just seems sustainable. They have 13 guys going to the combine this year. They're going to be super talented again next year. They're always recruiting at a very high level, and I think you pair that with I think he brings some of that old school football coach mentality, which I think you still need in this era, right? Everyone wants the new school. Everyone wants the Lane Kiffin until it gets to that point, and that's not always the funnest thing in the world. So to me, you pair that with the fact that they are willing to spend NIL wise, and I know that's not what this list is, but I'm a big Elko guy. He won at Duke also.
Big time. So I'm with you on that one. The guys I'm watching outside the list, I mentioned James Franklin, Campbell, who's now at Penn State. They've done such a good job of recruiting high-end NFL talent at Iowa State. That tells me this guy's a pretty special evaluator, particularly the skill positions. We're talking about multiple NFL running backs: Montgomery, Breece Hall, Brock Purdy at quarterback, all the receivers that they've signed, which is multiple, day one, day two type of guys. I think at Penn State he could do a lot of damage. We'll see. Iowa State was always a well-coached team. What is his ceiling? What's it going to look like at the Big Ten level? That's an interesting conversation to me. We'll see how quickly that turns around. James Franklin took a lot of players with him to VTech, but I thought really the two best hires were linked, which is Campbell at Penn State and James Franklin at Virginia Tech. Throw Kyle Whittingham, who we talked about earlier. Those are three teams I think are going to be very, very interesting to watch in the Big Ten and the ACC.
This is good off-season chatter, man.
Love list.
Definitely is. I have that recruiting news. I'm gonna draw. I wanted to talk
for it.
Yes, I am. I was gonna do a spot. I was gonna do a spot because, and I keep saying it, like the weather in South Florida has been unbelievable, but it's a little bit bipolar, right? Like it's hot, it's cold, and like it's gonna be chilly here the next few days. And I know a lot of you guys don't have heater systems in your house. And then it's going to get hot again right after that, and you're going to need your air condition to work as well. So call up Chill Zone Air Conditioning. Visit chillzoneac.com. Your comfort isn't just a temperature setting. It's a promise. Shout out to Melissa and the whole team at Chill Zone. You can check them out on Instagram as well, Chill Zone AC. Duct work, duct cleanings, installation, repairs, maintenance, work on mini splits, central AC, water source heat pumps, and this is for commercial and residential. Contact them today at 786-378-2778. Again, 786-378-2778. Chill Zone Air Conditioning. Again, installation, repair, maintenance, and then those heaters, man. It's gonna be real cold here the next week or so, and that's cold for South Florida. But that's why you got to get with Chill Zone AC. So check them out and visit the website today to get your free quote.
And look, if you are an AC company like Chill Zone, you work with repairs, plumbing, electrician, you name it, you're working with metals and waste. Get rid of it the right way. This one, it speaks to me because buying these kids all these devices now for school, I know in a very short amount of time, I'm going to get rid of all of them. So outdated tech, don't put in a landfill, recycle the right way with Scrap City. Safe handling, responsible recycling, and a process you can trust. Old laptops, you see those. We all have these hanging around our house, and they just sit there. No one does anything with them. They just sit there. You stare at them. I've been staring at these with like old grassy posts about, I don't know, Vegas Franklin starting at defensive tackle, just sitting there, getting dusty. Get rid of them, first of all, and then recycle them the right way for safe and responsible disposal. Call Scrap City, scrap-city.com. 954-330-9472. Stop by their locations, Pompano Beach or Delray Beach. Recycle, not just this stuff, any kind of scrap metal. Try to get some cash for your scraps. I saw in the comments, Scrap City, scrap city. That's the new slogan, scrap-city.com.
All right, D. So I have a couple recruiting tidbits here, and I will start, and I posted this on the Discord about an hour and a half, 2 hours ago when I got the message. But Dante Wright, 5-star corner, committed to Georgia right now from Long Beach Poly, as I pull up his page here, will be visiting Miami on March 28th. Again, he's committed to Georgia right now, but will be visiting Miami on March 28th. His agent, Connor Saslow of Athletes First, has told me. And look, it seems like right now, from what I understand, Will Harris and a lot of the other staff are the ones recruiting him. So I've already gotten questions of, hey, does this mean that he knows who his cornerbacks coach is going to be? That's not the case from what I understand. That's also the good thing about having a Will Harris still there on staff, and you have a Terry Jefferson and a lot of other people working it. But this is pretty significant news to me, D. 5-star cornerback, and some people think he's the best in the country.
Yeah, Long Beach Poly. I mean, this might be a little before your time. They always were producing just high-end players. It's like it's one of those places. Just a lot of people pull through that school. I think about Cameron Diaz used to buy weed from Snoop Dogg at the Long Beach Poly. So a lot of celebrities, a lot of football players. We got Von Telemark from there back in the day. So one of the more important schools out there in California. He's coming to Georgia, so clearly he's not worried about getting out and traveling. And Miami really, really wants a long, super talented quarterback, like a first-round pick. It's been too long since we had that first-round type corner. I think that is a priority for the staff. Obviously, you got two you want to develop, really more than that you want to develop in the room right now. But you got to keep adding. I think this is a player who brings a lot of speed to the table. Some of these Southern California defensive backs, for whatever reason, are leaving. I know Alabama's gotten a few. Dijon Lee a couple of years ago. They've been getting some of these guys from that side of the world to come over to the Southeast. So it's not impossible. He's committed to Georgia, like you saw. Physical, explosive player, man. I like how we're seeing special teams highlights too, mixed in with the corner highlights.
Yeah, and look, these are always. It's still so early, even though it's not really, because they're going to be taking visits now in the spring and then maybe taking officials after that. So this thing goes quickly. But I think it's still too early to know whether or not, like, hey, is Miami really in this one? Is he just want to get down here at this time of year? I don't know. But what I can tell you is that you've got a lot more to sell for a guy like this than you did even a year ago. And at his position, you're going to be losing a lot there. If we look ahead, I know we're looking at this next year, but when this guy, who is a premier top 3 player at his position, who wants to be the man pretty much as soon as he steps on campus, he'll probably have that opportunity, D.
He'll have the opportunity. It's going to be a battle, but he will because of what you lose. I mean, theoretically, you could lose 4 corners next year between OJ Frederico on pro, Lucas going pro. They all have eligibility, so I don't want to just say they're
You don't want to send them off without knowing, but it could happen. It could happen. And you have a Jalen Waters who I think is, ranked higher than he should have been ranked higher than where he ended up. And he's like this sort of caliber. I think he's really that good, D.
Yeah.
So we're not giving him the starting spot, but I'm just saying from the outside looking in, if you're recruiting, it's a nice opportunity, I would think.
Jabari Antoine, too, another one.
Jabari Antoine, can't forget him.
Yeah. So one way or the other, we need first round corners. The teams that win championships have first round corners. Indiana, maybe not first rounds. They had some really, really good corners that caused a lot of problems for Miami with great speed. D'Angelo Ponce, he'll be drafted somewhere close to Keontae Scott, I imagine. So you need guys like that. This guy is an interesting highlight reel. You see, you're seeing him play special teams a lot. You're seeing him play. I mean, here you go, just turning and running a little more. Why he's rated a 5-star, but you're seeing him play all over. Just I guess to show the overall football player that he is, as opposed to just being some sort of like track star.
No, I like it. This is the last play on the tape here. So, and you know how it is, man, with these corners. It's so traits based, but I love to see the plays being made here. So D, the other tidbit I had was another guy that I think we should keep an eye on, and I believe EJ Holland of On3 has reported these visits. So these aren't breaking news, but he's gonna be visiting. This guy's gonna be visiting twice here, and that's Trey Moore from Pflugerville. I believe that's how you say it. Texas, 6'3" wide receiver. I don't know. I can't remember if we've spoken about him before.
I don't think we have.
On the show, D, but I'm here. I'll bring up his profile here. But he'll be visiting now in March, and then he will be visiting again in May officially. So those were reported, but I'm hearing Miami is really making some traction there. I'm hearing this is a legitimate, target, and this guy has a lot of interest in what Miami has to say. I wouldn't even count out an early sort of commitment for him, and you see it here, a top 130 player on the composite. A legit 6'3", 6'4". I'll pull up his tape here, but LSU, Texas on him, A&M, Washington. And I'm going to let me pull up the huddle right here. But I'm hearing that Miami's making some moves with him.
Yeah, and that Pflugerville, Texas, that's basically Austin, Texas. So you talk about Texas lurking there. But some guys just want to get away. I mean, look at the guys that Texas has brought in from our side of town, right? They got Derek Cooper last year, Diabell. So it's not a guarantee that someone like that is going to go to the local school. I know he's got an OV scheduled to Texas on June 5th, also scheduled for Washington and Texas A&M and LSU, but then Miami there May 29th, right there in the heart of this recruiting season where you get all these OVs going. It's going to be a loaded situation. I think Gabby may have even put Trey in his mock class.
I'm here. I'm telling you, I'm hearing that Miami is, and I wouldn't even be surprised if they could get an early, push for an early one here. D, I'm pulling up the tape here, but I've also been told he's a legit 6'4". So here we go. This is my first time seeing it, but seems like the sort of athlete they want to add to that room.
Yeah, good urgency.
First play.
Good urgency for a big guy. When you see a guy at 6'4", you're kind of looking first to see how they accelerate, just because sometimes these guys have trouble gearing up. He's gearing up pretty quick. There you see him extending for a catch. Big time football. It's amazing watching these games, and look at how big that cheer team is.
Right.
You see at the back.
I mean, the stands. I mean, everything.
Scoreboard.
Looks like a home game. Look at him on coming around here on the sweep.
Let's see. I'll see if he's got track numbers. Nice move there. Number 5's got a tough assignment there.
Right.
I'll let me give him poor little Timmy status. Shout out to Coach Hayes. But let's see. Let's see if I can find. I don't see a lot of track times here. Let me see if there's anything with Trey Moore. Now, there was another Trey Moore that was a linebacker. We did a video on him. He transferred from UTSA. He's in the draft. I wonder if there's any relation there. Yeah, I don't know. But
I don't know. But listen, I like that was nice slant right there. Looks like he's got some good feet, and we've seen them. They've taken a big receiver now every year, just about. Oof, it was moving there.
Yeah, the production's there too. You talk about 1,443 yards, 85 receptions, 19 touchdowns. These Texas schools, man, you see some crazy stats just because the way they throw the football. Those stats can get really, really high up. And I found, and we've talked about, there's been a lot of correlation between wide receiver stats and what happens in college. Now stats, every team has different systems. Teams don't even record stats the same way. Man, I love how he accelerates off the line. But usually when a receiver gets these crazy stats in high school, that means that they're making themselves available to a quarterback who is not going to be as good as what he has at the college level. So if they're putting up those numbers with lesser quarterback play, that means they're getting themselves wide open. They're running after the catch. They're doing all these things. So in my experience, receiver production, especially talk about 1,400 plus yards for a guy with this size, that's an eye opener. The acceleration looks good. LSU's on. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, you're right about the competition. You know, I don't know how much of the speed gets aided by that, but just looking at him without looking at anyone else, he's to me seems like he's moving.
Yeah, so here's Sam Spiegelman, longtime LSU guy. By the way, George McDonald's recruiting Trey Moore for LSU. George McDonald, who we had as the Miami wide receiver coach, was really good for us too. A cool guy as well. But he's recruiting Trey Moore to LSU. Texas is in there. Here's what Trey Moore said about Miami. This is from Sam Spiegelman. He said, if I went to Miami, I'd become a better man. It's bigger than football with them. We have a great relationship, talking about him and the staff. I was just on the phone with Kevin Beard yesterday. We were just talking and most of the time we don't even talk about football, just talk about life. It's a very dog-type mentality over there. That's what I love. It's going to take the best out of you. If you're not built for it, you're not going to be able to stay. So it's the best of the best. And he said, they've been in it forever, for a long time. It's the culture there. It's the dog culture. It's infectious. You want to be there. You want to be part of it. Listen to this, Pete. You want to be one of the ones. You've got Michael Irvin going crazy on all fours barking. Who wouldn't want to be part of that? It's just the love they have, and they have all the old guys coming back, breathing into the young people. They want Miami to be great, and they'll do anything to see that happen. So,
cool. You know, D, to me, he seems like he's a very similar physicals to Tyron Evans from last year's class. Evans was hurt for most of the year.
Yeah, more productive.
And so, exactly, to me, a more productive version. I don't know what Evans would have done if he had a full year healthy, but that's what it looked like to me. And, a higher level prospect than Evans because of the production and the consistency there. But again, you're talking about they've taken Josh Moore, Milan Paris last year, who, from what I understand, represented by the same person. So that also could play into things.
Yeah. With Tyron Evans, I heard good things about him, by the way, just kind of the initial impressions of him and his upside. But I do think with more higher rated player, and I think just further along, more productive, less of a projection type of pick, and more that we're going to get this guy and he's going to make an immediate impact. So listen, this was a really good receiver class last year on paper. I want to see it in person. The one last year before that, we saw in person. One of them was an All-America first team, not freshman, real All-America. The other two played and had a role. So that was a really good class. They're all back. The two before that, not as good, right? As far as none of them are still here. Robbie Washington, and Bobby Washington. Trader the next year. Nikar, Chance. So you have two classes where you didn't get any production, not a lot of production out of your wide receivers. The last one in 25 was very good. 26 early returns are good. We'll see. This is a big class for the receivers. You got to beat Miami and not just rely on portal guys. You got to be getting these guys out of high school. They're going from Miami to the first round and second round, like Carnell Tate and others.
No doubt about it, D. And, when these visits start happening here in the spring and summer, when these guys are on campus, you know what they'll be eating? They'll be eating that Lomello's Wagyu beef. Hit up lomellos.com for nationwide beef delivered to your door. Use promo code CIS10 for 10% off your order. This is the top level of meat that you can get on not only the Wagyu, but the prime USDA as well. Every cut that you can imagine. Then if you're local here, of course, you got the storefront, 9810 South Dixie Highway, right by Dayland, about 10 minutes from campus. There you see the tomahawk on the grill, but you've got it all here at Lomello's Meat Market, lomellos.com. Again, promo code CIS10 for 10% off your order. And then if you're in store, mention Canes Insight, ask for the owner, George, and he will take care of you.
Like CFC said, from spam to Lomello's, the Canes program. But Pete, I gotta challenge you here, and I don't know if I've ever used this machine at Duffy's when we go. Usually we just kind of watch TV and eat. We got a battle here for the Duffy's leaderboard. John Wick pinball.
The pinball. I was gonna say we gotta get on the pinball for sure.
I gotta get my name in here. CM Pin Pimps right here doing some work. Captain Andy doing some work. But we'll battle here, Pete. We got to get our names on the leaderboard here at Duffy's Tavern, right there in the heart of Miami-Dade County, the edge of Coral Gables. 60-plus years serving the Miami community, now accepting credit cards. this is the spot for Miami Hurricane fans. Don't go to just Duffy's Sports Grill or one of these chains that are dime a dozen. Duffy's Tavern is the real deal with over 60 plus years of experience serving the Miami community.
Good afternoon show today, D, man. It was Aaron Torres was awesome. We definitely have to have him on more. That was great. He was a good guest. If you guys just joined us now, Fox Sports Radio, Aaron Torres joined us. He also has the Aaron Torres pod. He was on with us for like 25 minutes. We talked hoops and football as well. So that was a great discussion. And then had some recruiting stuff here. We talked top 10 coaches in college football. We should probably put our own list together.
Let's go. It's list season, baby.
That should be our list with Mike on Wednesday. That'll be our
list. I like it.
Yeah, the list because you know Mike will throw like Eric Morris on there at number 8. Like,
man, yeah, Mike is Mike's generate a lot of headlines lately. But we need some headlines for some college football news. With the list. I'm sure he's gonna be happy to talk about anything but all the stuff he's been talking about all week. So he'll be ready to rock and roll tomorrow or Wednesday.
Wednesday. So look forward to that. D will be back on tomorrow morning, as always. Canes Insight Daily at 9 a.m. And I'll be back on Thursday, and Friday most likely will be the other afternoon shows. So I'll be live from the Great Bape on Friday. That was a good show there last Friday. Had a good time with JT Austin, a recruit, but then they sent me an exciting white there near the end of the show that really got things going. So shout out to the Great Bape. But D, see you tomorrow morning. Feel better. Like I said, you sounded better this afternoon than this morning. So maybe one more show tonight, and you'll be good to go.
That's it, baby. Like and subscribe to the show. Go Canes.
Go Canes.